Welcome to a brand new series where I'm branching out into another card game that's not Yu-Gi-Oh! Smash Up. I mentioned if any of you would possibly be interested in watching some reviews for a personal favorite game of mine, and I got a couple comments, and so here it is. I'll give it a shot. I'll start by saying that this video, and to a broader extent, this series assumes you already know the basic rules of the game. If you'd like me to make a video about how to play Smash Up, let me know and I'll try and make one as soon as I can. So in this series, I'll be reviewing one faction at a time per video. I'll highlight the number of each of the faction's cards and go through them one at a time. After that, I'll focus on their strains, common strategies, and other factions that the faction plays really well with. Alright, let's do this. So today's video will highlight the Alien faction. Aliens are one of the 8 factions from the Smash Up core set. Their 20 cards are composed of a typical faction structure, meaning that they have 10 minions and 10 actions, of which the minions have a 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 distribution. Let's look at the minions first. Their first minion is Collector, a power 2 minion whose effect reads, you may return a minion of power 3 or less on this base to its owner's hand. There are 4 copies of Collector in the deck. Scout is a power 3 minion who says, Special. After this base is scored, you may place this minion into your hand instead of the discard pile. There are 3 copies of Scout in the deck. Invader is a power 3 minion who says, Gain 1 VP. There are 2 copies of Invader in the deck. And Supreme Overlord is a power 5 minion who says, you may return a minion to its owner's hand. There is 1 copy of Supreme Overlord in the deck. Let's look at the 10 actions now. The first actions we'll look at are Beam Up and Disintegrator. Both of these actions have 2 copies each in the deck. Beam Up states, return a minion to its owner's hand, while Disintegrator's effect is place a minion of power 3 or less on the bottom of its owner's deck. Their next 6 actions only have 1 copy of each in the deck. Let's look at 3 at a time. Abduction states, return a minion to its owner's hand, play an extra minion. Crop Circle states, choose a base, return each minion on that base to its owner's hand. And Probe says, look at another player's hand and choose a minion in it. That player discards that minion. And for the last 3 actions, we'll start with Jam Signal, which says, play on a base. Ongoing. All players ignore this base's ability. Terraforming says, search the base deck for base. Swap it with the base in play, discard all actions attached to it, shuffle the base deck. You may play an extra minion on the new base. And Invasion states, move a minion to another base. So now let's talk about some strategies. Essentially, Alien's primary focus is to remove other minions from the play area, but they do so in unconventional ways by either moving cards back into the hand, also known as bouncing, or by returning cards back directly to the deck. From these two, bouncing is a lot more prevalent in the faction, as 6 of their cards have this effect written on them, and when you take the multiple copies into account, 12 of their 20 cards have this effect. Bouncing is obviously very useful on opponents' minions, as it will completely bypass destruction, meaning cards that cannot be destroyed can still be bounced, and minions that have effects that trigger when destroyed will not work if bounced back to the hand. Secondly, bouncing is directly useful against factions that excel from the discard pile piling up. As an example, zombies are fantastic from the discard pile, but if they're constantly getting bounced back into the hand, the opponent is stuck with a bunch of useless zombies in the hand that can't get their good effects off. Do be careful with bouncing a minion with a really good on-play effect, as your opponent will be able to regain that great effect by playing it again on their next turn. However, what's even more interesting about Aliens is that in some ways it may be better to actually bounce your own minions instead of your opponent's. On top of the universal reasons why self-bouncing can be useful, such as getting rid of pesky actions attached to your minion or getting a second use of your minion's on-play ability, self-bouncing on Aliens specifically is really good if you can perfect the capabilities of Invader. Invader has a very simple effect, where you simply get 1 victory point upon playing him. Gaining victory points outside of base's scoring is already incredibly rare in Smash Up, but Aliens have an alternative strategy on recycling Invader to keep gaining VP consistently. If you can continuously bounce and recycle Invader every turn, you can quickly stockpile VP every single turn. The strategy is commonly referred to as Invader Dance by the community, but it is quite difficult to pull off perfectly, and also requires you to draw an Invader early in the game. It does also have a big drawback in that if you abuse this strategy, you will have very little presence on the board, thus leaving your opponents to try and grab all VP from bases themselves. Basically, the Invader Giant strategy is less effective the more players there are. In a 2-player game, it's quite deadly when played right, but it's average in a 3-player game and fairly bad in a 4-player game. The third and final strategy with aliens is base manipulation. It's less prominent than the other strategies because the faction has less cards dedicated to this. But basically, crop circles, jam signal, and invasion all have effects related to bases. The cards allow you to mass bounce, negate base effects, or move minions on a base respectively, which are all useful, but the big base manipulation card is Terraforming. Terraforming is one of the best base manipulation cards in the game simply because of the fact that it has 3 great parts to its effect. It allows you to freely search for any other base card in the deck, meaning you have full control of how the game will play out with this new particular base. It also discards all actions to the old base, which typically helps you a lot more than hurts you, and lastly, it even lets you play an extra minion to the new base. This is a card that feels like its effect could have been split into 2 different cards because it does so much, but luckily they put it all in one. The only downside of course is that there is only one in the deck, which makes sense as powerful cards need to be balanced out in this way. This is also why a card like Abduction has only 1 copy, but there are 2 beam ups in the deck. Obviously, Abduction is a complete upgrade and power crop version of Beam Up, but it needs to be balanced out by putting less copies of it in the deck compared to a weaker version of it. The 2 bases associated with aliens are the Homeworld and the Mothership. The Homeworld has a breakpoint of 23 with a 4 2-to-1 VP allocation, and it says after each time a minion is played here, its owner may play an extra minion of power 2 or less. The Mothership has a breakpoint of 20 with a 4 to 2-to-1 allocation and says, after this base scores, the winner may return one of his or her minions of power 3 or less from here to his or her hand. The Mothership works well with returning your invader back to the hand as opposed to the discard pile upon scoring the base, and the Homeworld works very well if you have both an invader and collector in your hand. Basically, play invader, gain 1 VP, then play collector to return invader back to your hand. As long as you have a card every turn to bounce collector back, you can repeat this strategy every single turn. So what factions work well to play alongside aliens? Well, one of the great combos is Star Roamers. Aside from the hilarious great theming, you know, space and space, a lot of their cards focus on bouncing as well, such as Science Officer, Port Me Up, and Mass Teleport, while Ship's Captain can instantly play Invader from the deck. The Shapeshifter has similar power with Gelf, who can also replace itself with an Invader, while Transmogrify can bring out the second Invader from the deck, or Mitosis can do it but from the hand. Killer Plans are also great for capitalizing on the Invader combo, as cards like Sprout, which there are 4 of, can search and play Invader directly from the deck as long as you're okay with waiting 1 turn, while Budding can help bring out the second copy of it as well. There's obviously more great cards that synergize well with aliens, but these are some of the best that I was able to find, although it's not perfect of course. But that's about it for aliens. Aliens overall focus on bouncing opponents' cards back while also recycling your own invader. Mastering the art of searching invader, recycling him, and also dealing with your opponent's minions at the same time by bouncing them are the key to victory. So let me know what you thought of this video and if I should keep making them or tweaking them in a different way. As always, take care everyone. See you next time.